the whole concept of democracy is about the ability of the people to exercise their free will on how they wish to be governed, whom they wish to be governed by, whom they wish that will govern them, the character of the individual governing them. And therefore, an institution that brings forth this government is quite crucial. It is not enough to put into place the NADCOL report that proposed the participation of political parties and political players in coming up with the IBC. It is one thing for us to say that the political players, the political parties, will appoint panelists who will put into place the IBC. Again, it's another thing to make sure that the individuals sitting in the panel are beyond reproach, they are beyond the possibility of influence by the political actors, so as to say that they shall act impartially in putting to place a credible election, a credible electoral body. What am I saying? I am saying, other than just having an electoral body that is supposedly put into place through a process that is perceived to be impartial, we must also look at the entire electoral infrastructure. The electoral infrastructure encompasses both the human resource component and other supporting infrastructures, for example, the technological infrastructure. We may have very good, impartial, and credible commissioners, but we fail on the supporting infrastructures. If the supporting infrastructure that we have put into place is not one that is secure, is not one that is free from interferences, is not one that is simple, then the commissioners, despite how impartial they may be, will not be in a position to carry out a secure, free, fair, and simple election. Last week, I heard SK Majaria address a very key component of the electoral infrastructure, and he specifically addressed the voters register. My view is one, that today we can rise up and say that we are going to clean up the voters register. But how about the human resource supporting that infrastructure? Dibal, can you hear me?
Yes, perfectly.
How about the human resource supporting that infrastructure? And I'll give a very simple example. In the run-up to 2022 elections, we all remember or recall that the constituency, the ward, and the polling stations electoral infrastructure is always put into place perhaps a month before the election. That is to say, the individuals participating in a polling center and in a particular polling station always come into place 1 month before the election or 3 weeks before the election. Previously, these individuals who are supposed to carry out a free, fair, secure election are among the society and the community that is actively participating in active politics. Some of those individuals, because they have no idea whether they'll end up being members of the Electoral Commission, they attend political parties' meetings, they attend political candidates' campaigns. Some of them, they even receive these bribes from political players. And yet, at a particular point X, they are supposed to be converted into into an electoral machine that will oversee a free and fair election. Notwithstanding the fact that before they were converted into officials of the Electoral Commission, they had contaminated themselves with the active political participants. So how do you expect such a person, such a polling clerk, perhaps, or the presiding officer, to immunize himself and become fully converted into a free, fair, secure, and simple electoral machine that will deliver a fair elections? So in my view, the manner in which we put into place and the timings in which we put into place part of these electoral components ends up compromising the whole idea of a free, fair, and secure election. I'll give another example. When we go for election petitions, a key component for you to win an election petition is the whole aspect of evidence. For example, when Azimio took UDA to court in 2022, Azimio was supposed to prove the existence of unfairness in the election. They were accusing the IBC of having conducted an unfair election. But remember, the person whom you are accusing is a custodian of all the pertinent electoral evidence that you require to adduce in court to prove the absence of a free and fair election. If, for example, Azimio was required to prove that at a particular point X, there were more registered voters than there were more votes than the registered voters, the person in possession of the election register is the IBC. They are the ones who are supposed to give you that evidence so that then you can accuse them. Some of those components ends up in compromising and prejudicing a free, fair elections. The final example I would give on how human resource compromises a free, fair election. And even as the commission sits somewhere in Nairobi, awaiting to tally the results, compromise has already taken place at the polling station. Remember, we all agree, according to the case of Maina Kiai, that the results at the polling stations are final. You have no capacity of challenging those results. Yet the human resource seated at that polling station participated 3 weeks prior to the election in a political campaign. Some of them were even bribed by the candidates. How then can you think that you can yield a process that is free and fair? Finally, the management of the polling station or the polling centers. When we go to the question of enhancing a free and fair elections, we leave it entirely to the IBC. But remember that one component that we must look out in a free and fair election is the question of voters' bribery. But who should then investigate, or who should be out in the outlook? Remember, who should be on the outlook of ensuring there is no voters' bribery? Voters' bribery is a criminal offense appearing in the Election Offences Act. The IBC has no police. It has no criminal justice system that is supposed to oversee the compromising of the election at the polling centers and polling stations. That is the work of the National Police Service. But the National Police Service is so detached from the electoral process because of the whole concept of the independence of the electoral body. So
right.
at the end of the day...
Yes, thank you, Ndegwa. Thank you. Just hold on to your thoughts because I think also we are putting so much on the table.